I'd just like to start this show with a shout out to all the audio podcast listeners out there. We apologize if there's echoes in our shows. It's amateur hour here. We don't really know what we're doing most days. Just kind of winging it and seeing what happens. But most of our equipment, I feel like, has not been reset back up the way we had it since we moved.
And we're getting ready to move it downstairs. So sorry about that.
You will not always see this background. It will actually look a lot prettier very soon. Amy bought some lovely chairs. I bought some IKEA furniture that I have to put together. And there's even a TV involved. Jeff, I'm going to need you to come hang that.
Let me know when. I'm good at IKEA furniture too, so you let me know.
Are the ceiling fans still up that Jeff put up?
They are. The ceiling fans are still up. A couple of them, no matter what you do not turn off. They just keep going. So if you're in the...
Jeff said you had some ever spinners. Those are the ever spinners. They just continue.
Yeah, if you're in the Orlando, Florida area and you need a ceiling fan install, reach out to Jeff Haslam. He'll make it run forever.
An ever spinner.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. I'm your host, Paul Krieger, joined as always by my lovely wife, Amy Krieger.
Hello.
We've got John Sakari, aka Big Fat Panda, in the house.
Welcome home, everyone.
The one, the only Jeff Haslam. And Senior Sales Associate for the DVC Resale Market, Derek DeBoer.
Hey now. So I'm sitting here waiting because I come after Panda, and then I realized after the last show and my props, you're probably like, I'm just going to go to Jeff first. So
what's fine? I feel like I just need to, I need to just change the order of buttons that I have here and move him before you, because I just never know what's going to happen. And I feel bad for Jeff some days because I don't know what just happened. But
never feel bad for me.
And I just want to say how cute you two are with your matching zip up sweatshirts here in this episode. So,
we have the same shirt too.
It is absolutely beautiful, and audio listeners will never get to see that. But actually, so many of you watch us on YouTube, and I absolutely love you. It would be great if just for like one episode, you went over to Spotify and watched us there too. I'm just saying, if you just want to change it up, maybe just listen to us. That works as well. And we could bump those numbers up a little bit. Just shameless plug.
Yeah, there's a level that you were trying to get to.
Yeah.
So, which we're not there.
We're not there yet.
On the Spotify.
We'll be there one day. Tell your parents about us. Tell everyone. Hi, Mom. How are you? Listen to our show.
If it's Spotify, you should be telling your kids about us. The parents aren't going to know what that is.
Well, welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. Getting away, back on track, back on topic. We are talking more of our kind of back to basics series that we are running with this year. And we thought it would be important to dive into what expiration dates are when it comes to Disney Vacation Club. Every single Disney Vacation Club resort has an expiration date. All of your deeds that you have for these specific resorts state this expiration date. And so it's important to understand what this means to members, what it means for the future of Disney Vacation Club, and if you're a first-time buyer, kind of how to plan for that. This and all of our Disney Vacation Club content is always brought to you by the world of DVC, DVC Resale Market, if you're looking to buy or sell a Disney Vacation Club contract, Monera Financial, who can help with financing that DVC resale contract purchase, and the DVC rental store, where you can try before you buy, rent out some points, or rent your own points for some cash. And a quick note related to the world of DVC, you may have seen it on the internet, you may have seen it on social media, but the world of DVC is now under a broader umbrella called Keyholder Vacations. What does this mean to you as someone that listens to us on the DVC Fan Show? Absolutely nothing for the most part. Keyholder Vacations is just going to provide us with a wider range of abilities to meet the needs of travel far and beyond Disney Vacation Club. We've talked about it in a couple different shows recently. We now are doing some Royal Caribbean cruise swaps. So you may see kind of our brand starting to expand outwards from the Disney bubble a little bit. And that is why the decision has been made to have this overarching brand, Keyholder Vacations, kind of be our parent company moving forward. But World of DVC still exists. DVC resale market still exists. This whole motley crew still exists, and nothing else will change. So if you do see that name out there, that is us. But for the most part, you won't really notice any difference in what we're going to talk to you about, because we are here to talk all things DVC, or else Derek wouldn't be here.
And did you notice how fast he took off his glasses just then? Like he's worried that people are going to know that that's his alter ego.
I noticed.
Because every time
Wait, was that Clark Kent?
Paul always has to say something like, "Oh, there he goes. There goes senior sales agent reaching on his bifocals again."
It's just too funny, because not the rest of the world doesn't get to see what I see in between. Like if I send the camera over to Panda, I get to see the rest of you, and Jeff's taking a drink of water or something while Panda's talking. Derek is doing exactly what he's doing now, fixing his hair, or he's like trying to read some piece of paper or the computer screen. And if he does both at the same time, yes, he gets really close. He gets really close to the screen and he's trying to read the computer. And it makes my night, because I get to
see us. That is information that is going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah, I have a little window down here on my screen. So
I have some surprises for you.
Yeah. Do you guys see us? Do we disappear? No.
Yeah.
But Jeff, you could just press a button and you're on. So be careful with your little
True.
surprises.
Yeah.
When somebody's full screen, we don't see anybody else.
Well, we are talking about
Please don't upset the folks at Keyholder Vacations. Let's move on.
Yeah, I really don't know where to go from here now. So there you have it. We are talking deed expiration dates tonight. And I think I kind of kicked us off by kind of saying, what is a deed expiration date? And it's pretty self-explanatory. So comparing us to other timeshare, or I say us, like we are Disney Vacation. Well, essentially we are. We are the mayors of Disney Vacation Club, just like Jeff is the mayor of Old Key West. But when it comes to Disney Vacation Club, unlike other timeshares that basically are in perpetuity, I guess forever, you basically buy in and you've got this thing and your kids have this thing and then your grandkids have it and they don't want it and they don't know what to do with it, and then they have to hire someone and pay them to get rid of it. Unlike all of that, Disney Vacation Club actually came up with a pretty ingenious model where it's like, we're only going to give it to you for about 50 years. And then at the end of that 50 years, we're going to take it back and you own nothing. I don't want it to sound that bleak, because it's pretty awesome and the value you get out of those 50 years is great. But every single resort does have an expiration date. And if you are wondering what those are, on the screen right now, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can actually see a list of all of these resorts. So a handful of resorts all expire in 2042. That is the closest expiration date to today. So that's like Beach Club, Boardwalk, Boulder Ridge. You also have Hilton Head, Vero Beach to throw into that. Just kind of going down the list here, though, you've got Animal Kingdom 2057, Alani 2062, Bay Lake 2060. We'd already discussed Boardwalk, Boulder Ridge. Those are 2042 resorts. The newest Disney Vacation Club property, Cabins at Disney's Fort Wilderness, not until 2075. Someone will still be here talking about Disney Vacation Club in 2075.
I'll be pushing 90.
Yeah. I'm not sure that we'll still be doing this show. Just saying. I love the internet and all, but I don't know that I'll know what Disney Vacation Club is by 2075.
Amy will be like, I hope Red Baron Peach says no.
But every single resort does have that finite expiration date. And that's an important thing to consider when it comes to kind of what property you are looking to buy. Derek, I assume that, this is a conversation that comes up sometimes when people are looking at a specific resort or a specific property and how many years there might be.
Yeah, especially, a lot of people at first, as they're learning about the club, that's a big question, because a lot of people, their first question, maybe to me or one of the agents here is always, so which resort has the longest deed? And I have to explain, okay, so are you familiar with the club, and how it all works? No, but I just want the one that's got the most years, because I want to be able to pass it on to my kids and I want to be able to pass it on to my grandkids. So we're, of course, happy to run through all that. But what we want to stress, though, is that, yes, while that's important, how many years are left, what's more important is why are you buying that resort, right? Because it all comes down to that, the one you buy, you have that home resort priority, and not all resorts are created equal, meaning not all resorts are easy to get into if you do not own them. So there's some resorts, say Boardwalk, Beach Club in particular, Grand Californian, Grand Floridian sometimes during certain times of the year. Those are, may not be the easiest resorts to get into. So it comes back down to it like, hey, listen, how do you vacation? Do you have a favorite resort? If so, regardless of quote unquote, how many years are left, if you love the Beach Club, right, but you're going to buy something, the cabins at Fort Wilderness because you want to be able to use it at the Beach Club, you're probably going to be maybe disappointed for the next, almost 20 years because you may not be able to get in to the resort that you want. So I think even more important is, not only how many years are left, but how do you plan on using it? Because if you love the Beach Club, every day I have people that buy the Beach Club and they say, I know it's 2042, but you know what? I don't want to be bummed out at 7 months for the next 18, 19 years. I want to be able to know that I can get into the resort that I love, so I'm not disappointed. So I don't care about how many years are left. So again, that's where people see value in different ways. Some people it's price per point. Some people it's annual dues. And this conversation is people that find value in, I want to have the resort that has the longest deed, no matter what.
Amy, you mentioned that in a recent Q&A show that we actually did regarding our Boardwalk contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I agree completely with what Derek said. I would rather be happy for the next, what we got now, like 18 years, and knowing I'm going to get to be, exactly where I want to be than having to kind of stress out, especially if we talked about the planner and the people that have specific wants and specific needs and specific dates. If you want to be staying at the Boardwalk during the Food and Wine Festival, in October, then you definitely want to make sure that you have the resort. And a lot of people will buy Vero Beach, because they want to be able to go during those difficult to get during the summer, or they want the 3-bedroom beach cottages, because you really can't get those 3 bedrooms at Vero Beach unless you own there. So if that's what's going to make you happy, then that's worth it. Because at the end of the day, DVC is just as much an emotional purchase, as it is a financial one.
Yeah.
Panda, Jeff, was kind of expiration date ever a consideration for you guys when you actually bought into Disney Vacation Club?
I will tell you, I'm not even sure I was aware of it at the time. I mean, I was because of the shows, but I don't think I thought of it as I was purchasing. No. But there is something to be said where there, at some point, like let's say you really want Old Key West, at some point, there's going to be a thing where, do I do this that cancels in 2042 or take something else that cancels, 20 years later?
Yeah.
That's an argument.
If you missed the first episode of this kind of back to basics series, we talked about all things Disney Vacation Club. And Jeff, you mentioned on that show how, you specifically bought into Old Key West because it was the best value for you at the time. So does that kind of answer that question? Was deed expiration a factor in that component?
Wasn't at the time. And Old Key West is weird because it's got 2 expirations, which I'm sure we're going to get into, but it wasn't at the time. I wanted the best value for the dollar. At that time, the dues were low. I had an extended contract. However, it's been almost 4 years now since I bought those contracts, and the 2042 that I had left, I just sold because I'm starting to think down the road a little further, and I'm thinking, I don't want everything that I own to be 2042. I don't want to suddenly be out of points in 18 years. I hope to not yet be dead, and I'll be in my 60s. But I'm purposely offloading that contract for that very reason. I want something that's got a little further out. So, did it come into play at the time? No. Is it a factor now? A little bit.
So yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. So 2042, that is the first year in which multiple Disney Vacation Club properties are going to expire. So we've got the original Old Key West owners. Those contracts will expire. We'll put an asterisk next to that, and we'll get back to that as to what that means fully in a little bit. But Old Key West, Boardwalk, Beach Club, Boulder Ridge, Vero Beach, Hilton Head. That's 6 out of the current 17 resorts. So that is a large component of Disney Vacation Club properties, all planning to expire in 2042. And I actually write a blog monthly for DVC Resale Market. It's the average price blog. So it monitors kind of the average price of contracts sold. And right before we actually started this show, I was talking to Derek about it because I actually just wrote the December 2024 one. And one of the insights that I kind of came up with on that was, I think we're starting to see volatility in 2042. I don't want to say that it's decreasing or declining yet, but it's kind of like a wave that doesn't know which direction it should go in right now. So we see kind of months in which some of these resorts trend back up. We see months in which some of these resorts trend back down. On the whole, it's kind of followed the rest of the market, which I think over the past 2 years has kind of declined in value. But Derek, have you kind of seen a similar trend with 2042 resorts, or do you have maybe an influx of sellers reaching out to you that are, having this conversation?
Yeah, it does kind of seem that lately, I'm talking to more and more sellers who, when they look to sell, and I ask, hey, so what do you own? A lot of times it is that, hey, Vero Beach. I seem to be getting a little bit more. We at the DVC Resale Market, I seem to be getting a lot of Vero lately. Some beach clubs, which again, beach club and boardwalk, those I think honestly will always remain popular no matter what. We just listed, for example, a 100-point beach club the other day. Within 6 hours, I think it had 5 different offers on it. So again, for folks for those resorts, whereas something like, again, a Vero might tend to maybe sit for a little bit longer. Because again, people initially, when they look at some of these and maybe they're not 100% familiar with the club, they're like, hey, so wait a second, I could buy points at Vero Beach at like $50 a point and I could use them to go stay at the beach club. And you're always like, well, I mean, technically, yeah, you can, but let me break it out for you and what that means if you buy Vero. And then you do walk through it, because I want to make sure that everybody's completely aware. You got 2042, you got the highest annual dues, and you can't book a Walt Disney World resort until 7 months out. So that's where folks go, oh, okay. Yeah. So for us, it seems to be, the ones that, honestly, we sell everything, but the ones that tend to maybe sit a little bit longer than average, because 80% of them will sell within, 30 days or less, are the Veros, the Hilton Heads, for obvious reasons. It's, 2042 does play a part, but it's also their off property, so they're not at Walt Disney World. So I'm honest with people. I'm like, listen, where are you going to use it? Well, I just want to use it for Walt Disney World. Then buy a Walt Disney World resort, buy a Six Springs. Don't buy a Vero, don't buy a Hilton Head. But people, like Annie said, people that love those cottages that want to go, during the busy time at Hilton Head, which is the summer, people love to buy points for those resorts. So again, it does come down to being an emotional, and for those, off Disney resorts, it's still very practical if you want to, enjoy staying where you want to stay for the next, 18, 19 years. You got to do it.
I think it's really interesting too, where these kind of resorts fall. When we look at those average resale prices, because that's what we're really looking at when it comes to what is the remaining value left on these contracts. It's what's that resale value. It's like when you're selling your house or selling a used car. Like, what is that remaining resale value? I continue to get updates from Carvana that our Jeep's value keeps plummeting, and I really want to sell it right now. But anyhow, when you look at kind of the Walt Disney World properties, you kind of see that difference that Derek was talking about. So resorts like Beach Club, Boardwalk in the 120s to 130s per point still, even though they have that 2042 value. And they've kind of stayed there for the entire year. Actually, both of those resorts actually saw an increase last year if you look year over year in terms of the price per point for those resorts. Old Key West, actually also a small increase for that 2042. So from $89 per point December 23 all the way to $91 per point in December 24. The interesting ones are the ones that are not at Walt Disney World, like Derek mentioned. Vero Beach started December 23 at $58 per point. In December of 24, it was at $51 per point. Hilton Head actually did go up year over year. So it's kind of its own outlier. There's a lot of people that just love Hilton Head Island. We went there last year. It was absolutely beautiful. We're going to try to make it back there this year, hopefully, maybe in the fall season. But there was an interesting thread that I found on Disboards not too long ago. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. which is that will Vero Beach kind of be the first Disney Vacation Club property that we maybe see hit a $0 value? And what essentially that means is it's music. The sadness to Derek's ears. I told him I didn't want to completely, depress him in this episode. But when you factor in the value of the contract, $51 per point, let's say, as of December 2024. And then, Derek, what are annual dues for Vero Beach this year?
You're
13, 14.
You're just begging me to put these on again.
I am. But I want to say it's in the $13, $14 per point range, if not higher.
It's over $13.
Yeah. And so
it's $14.30.
Oh, it's over $14.
Yeah, so $14.30. So when Jeff, you're shaking your head no, like it's a sad thing because I know we all love Vero Beach, but
okay, I do have a comment on that.
Okay.
And this came from someone who I think commented on one of our videos, and I thought it was a good point.
I know exactly where you're going with this, yeah.
They were, and they broke down the math a lot better than I'm going to, because I'm not going to break down the math for you at all because it's math. But basically
she writes loans for a living, ladies and gentlemen.
The point they were making is that yes, Vero Beach has very high dues, the highest that there are. But one thing that Vero Beach also has is some of the lowest point charts. So like it kind of evens out. You know what I mean? You're paying, this much dues, but you only need this many points. So you need a whole lot less points to stay there on average than something like Grand Floridian, Polynesian. Yeah, the dues are lower, but you need like double the points per night. You know what I mean? To stay in a studio there. So I thought that was a good point.
Which is a good point, but the difference is you're 2 hours away from Walt Disney World. So, I mean, it's going to be more points. I mean, that's the whole point is when you go to Vero, there's nothing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, your rooms are going to be less per point. We just went 3 weeks ago, I think today. So we were there for 4 nights right before Christmas. Ocean View room, I think it was like 15 points a night or 20 points a night, which was absolute insanity how low those points are. But again, you're in Vero. So, I mean, we love it, adore it. Everybody that goes there loves it and then winds up, a lot of members will add more points because they say, I want to be able to come back because I love this place. But again, I mean, that's why the points are always going to be more. It's still a great point, but it's going to be more to stay at Walt Disney World than.
Yeah. I hear that Vero decorates really, really pretty for Christmas.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best time of year to go to Vero. The tree is phenomenal. Oh my God.
I don't want to fully derail this show, but I also just, can we take a minute, Derek, just for you to tell us all that we were correct and that Wind and Waves is an amazing restaurant yet again?
I was so happy to post that on DVC Fan because Annie and I went without the kids for one night and we're like, where are we going to go eat? We didn't want to leave. So we're like, well, hello, Wind and Waves. Here I am. I went in there. I was kind of afraid that they were like not going to serve me. So I wore like a top hat and like a mustache. We sat down. It was awesome. I had the shrimp and grits. It was phenomenal. Our service, which has always been great at Vero, the service is always phenomenal. I just always had an issue with the food there, but I could not be happier. I was so happy to post that and happy to see that people were happy with me at Wind and Waves. I saw a bunch of DVC fan folks throughout my whole entire trip there, which is awesome. So I love seeing them. And every single one of them was like, I'm so glad you liked Wind and Waves. We're so happy to see. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Jeff, I want to go to you with the question that I asked to kick us off, but I'm going to add 2 other pieces of information here to kind of just set the stage a little bit more. Sadly, Vero Beach originally had an expansion plot that was across the street from where it currently sits. So the plan for Disney was always to expand Vero Beach, hoping that it did well. Disney has sold off that land. They no longer own that land. So I feel like that's a little bit of writing on the wall. So going back to you kind of shaking your head there, do you think that we are going to kind of get to that 0 value here with Vero Beach Resort? And what does that mean? And what do you think they maybe do with this property once we get to 2042?
Yeah, I think the closer we inch to that, I think you're going to see those values start to plummet. And nobody has a crystal ball, but I'm thinking after, we crossed that 10-year mark, 10 years left on those deeds, is when you're really going to start to see those impacts if we're just guessing. But, you know, we've seen time and time again, the Disney, right now there's more for sale than there's ever been. And some of those properties are struggling to sell. You know, right now we've got Disneyland Tower, we've got Aulani, we've got, what else do we have? The Caverns, Polynesian. There's a lot of inventory right now that they're having trouble getting through. Some are selling better than others, but I don't think they're going to want to put themselves in a position to try and flip 6 properties at the same time. I think, unfortunately for Derek and for a lot of us, I think Vero and Hilton Head will get sold off. I think they'll become Wyndham or RCI or Marriott or somebody completely different than that. Maybe they'll get raised and something else built there, but I just don't see the off-property experiment for Disney didn't really do what anybody thought it was. Now, if they were to surprise us next year and to say, hey, we're going to build a DVC in Salt Lake and in Vegas and in Vermont and all these other places that we all wish they would, that could be a different conversation. But it doesn't feel like that experiment worked very well for them. So I think those will be the first to go. I have thoughts about the other ones, but yeah.
I wish that there was a scenario in which, you know, Disney Vacation Club could expand internationally. That is probably one of the biggest struggles with Disney Vacation Club. But we've said before, I would love to see like Disney Vacation Club on a cruise ship. Now, the annual dues would be through the roof probably. And what happens if your ship sinks? You know, there would have to be some parameters around that. But also, we get questions all the time about, you know, going to Tokyo, going to Disneyland Paris, Shanghai, as they continue to
Well, what's the last ship that sank?
Titanic.
I don't
Costa
think that's
Concordia.
I don't think it's a concern, even as much as a sinkhole.
Hey, the Costa Concordia sunk in like 2016?
I don't know. Paul just made it sound like it's a weekly thing.
I know.
You got to worry about the ship.
Okay.
I like how his answer was Titanic, though. Like in 1912 was the last time.
Well, our good friends Dan and Jeff, we went on the Icon of the Seas with Royal Caribbean with them last year, and they were extremely. Dan was like, "Don't show me anything about sinking ships or anything like that." He was like, "This thing looks so big, it's just gonna tilt over when they throw it into the water. I mean, it's likely to go down and all this stuff." So, what do I do as an amazing friend? I double down. They have a pool, so I sent them an inflatable of the Titanic to put in their pool. And comically enough, one time he sends me a picture one night and it had fell over. So I was like, "Well, it's a sign. It's a sign."
It was 2012.
Yeah,
that it sank.
I'm just saying, logistically, the'd probably be a lot of. We know how Disney is with legal on a daily basis. So
the better question is, how many times has Carnival caught on fire?
Last year, I think it was 2 at least in 1 year.
The people don't react; they just continue to party. By the way, watch the videos.
Group package.
But I think that's, you know, I wish if Disney were to explore expansion again for Disney Vacation Club, it would be great to see them move in those directions where, you know, your clientele already loves the product that you have.
Right.
I think that's the struggle with these other properties. And it's not that they're like, you ask us, like, we'll do this, you know, for 2025 at some point, we'll probably discuss our favorite Disney Vacation Club properties. Derek's going to say Vero Beach. One of us in some capacity is probably going to say Aulani. You know, these properties that are not at Disney World are some of the best Disney Vacation Club.
I know. I really hate that they don't do well. You know what I mean? Because I wish it was such a vibrant. I wish that they could expand. I wish that there was just DVC. You know, hey, we're going to New York City. I'll have a cruise. Where we're going to stay? Of course, we're going to use our DVC points and stay at the Times Square DVC resort.
Did you know that there was a New York City DVC concept at one time that never went up?
I didn't know that. Or like, hey, I want something different. I want to go to the mountains, or I want to go to like Tahoe or a ski resort or something. It just
Utah. It's
so cool if you could be like, well, let's just use our DVC points. We know we'll be taken care of at this DVC resort. But I just hate that the concept didn't work well enough.
Yeah,
that they're just, you know. And you have to like understand, like, yes, we get it. If you love DVC, you're probably very parks focused, and that's understandable. But yeah,
Yeah,
Well, not
it's
to
just
keep going off the rails here, but Virgin Voyages is testing a new thing where you can hop on, hop off at Bimini. So you take your cruise, you get off the ship in Bimini, you stay there for a week, and then you catch the next boat that happens to come into port. And like, can you imagine if DVC did that with Disney Cruise Line, and you could just pop over to Lighthouse Point or whatever they've come up with? I don't know.
I thought that they were going to do that when they built Lighthouse Point, because
Yeah.
they bought enough land out there that I thought, what if somehow they packaged the ability to take a 3-night cruise and go to Lighthouse Point and then stay there on your property for 3 nights or so, and then hop back on the cruise ship and come back. I think people would love that. I think definitely you've seen the growth in cruise line over the course of the past 5 years coming out of the pandemic, that you have to say to yourself, if there was a way to package this, like it would blow my mind if it's not on a whiteboard somewhere and it's not having been discussed, and they're just like, how could we make it legally work? How could we make it feasibly work? Because we are talking about, like, I don't know that we would ever know, like, how much did Riviera cost to build, but it's definitely probably not the same amount of money that it cost to build Disney Treasure that just started sailing in December.
For sure.
So, we go down this fantasy route, but it's like, what would the cost per point be? How many years would be on this contract? What are
the annual dues? Yeah.
What's that ship going to look like in 50 years? Does it get a refurb? Like, what happens?
They do the
Can
soft
they put a
goods
Murphy
and the-
bed on a cruise ship?
Yeah. So there's just a lot of questions about that. And so unfortunately, I do kind of agree with Jeff, what you said, and kind of the direction that I think Disney will go in 2042, which is that a lot of these external properties will probably close or be sold off. I just don't see them. They would surprise me if they did something else. And a lot of questions we get all the time is, Disney's got to have a plan. What's their plan? Why aren't they telling us their plan? I guarantee you from the bottom of my heart, the current leadership, they don't care. Nor do they really know. There might be, on a 10-year plan, a strategic vision for what this might look like, or potentially how it rolls into the current package of what they're doing. I do think the writing is on the wall with kind of what they're doing with resale restrictions, and maybe what they're doing with the Palmetto Trust. But they really don't care. At this point in time, most of them are going to be somewhere else at that point in time, and they're not going to have to worry about it. And they just care about, getting from year to year, and hitting their 1-year goal, hitting their 3-year goal, hitting their 5-year goal. So this is a question mark that is far out there.
I love what Jeff said about the 10-year thing with people.
Yeah.
I think that's with Disney too. I think as it gets to the last 10 years, we'll hear it come up a lot more.
Well, and it's so abstract right now. 18 years down the road, when you have a 50, 60 point or 60-year contract, that's a long time. 18 years, there's not that much left. But 18 years is still a long time. Like, that's a whole
It is.
getting out of the house. You know
Right.
Yeah.
Born to adulthood. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's very abstract for everybody to think that far down the road. But at some point, somebody's going to have to think that far down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, every single day, I'm blessed to have at least multiple people ask me, so what happens in 2042? Like, every day, someone will always ask me, and I literally have the same answer. And you just said it. Disney's literally trying to get through 2025. Like, they are not thinking.
Well, then, like,
everybody, let's have a meeting. Now, remember, who's got plans for 2043?
Right.
They're just trying to have, frontier land, not, blow up with sewage, and so they could build fires on. They're not worried about 2042.
Yeah.
So,
and Aulani is
the time-wise too, Jeff. I mean, you just touched it. I bought my boardwalk in like 1999, right? Didn't have any kids. Olin is now 20 years old. Connor's 16 years old. And Annie and I just said, we're like, holy cow, God, we still got what, 18, 19 more years left of this? So when you're in it and you realize how long that, span of time is, it's okay.
Just because I know the calendar, just because I know the calendar can do this, at the end of this show, Derek, I'm going to send you a calendar invite for a dinner invitation in 2042.
Yeah. Panda will just decline it though.
But thinking I accepted it. Thinking I
But
You
the
can't
perfect
find the nuts-
illustration of this is Alani. If they were worried about things not selling, they wouldn't keep raising the price of Alani because it's been sold for 152 years now. So
Yeah. Yeah. You know what though? It's also interesting because I get asked just at Monera all the time, well, what do you think is going to happen in 2042 to these resorts? Should I be buying it? What do you think is going to happen? And I just want to be like, think about 2024 and like in January 2024, Jeff, did you know you were going to buy a house in that year?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, like we didn't know that. Like there's so many things that can happen to you in just 1 year. So many things can change in your life that you don't even know. So yeah, they're not going to know. Nobody knows.
We mentioned this at the top of the show related to Old Key West, but Old Key West is the only property in which I don't know if they tried to maybe answer this question a little bit, or if they were just experimenting. I'll let Derek go into more detail because I know he was around whenever that debacle happened. But Old Key West has 2 expiration dates. So if you're ever looking at Old Key West contracts, most likely if you're buying direct through Disney, they're going to sell you what is a 2057 expiration date contract. And if you look on the resale market, you're going to see a combination of both 2057 and 2042 expiration contracts. And this is because many moons ago, back when Derek was a young buck selling Disney Vacation Club, before the reading glasses, Disney Vacation Club offered a 15-year extension. So they gave the original owners or the owners at the time of Old Key West the ability to extend their contract by 15 years. What then ensued is maybe I would say between 20 to 30% of people at the time decided, yeah, I'll take the extra 15 years. It was a decent price or whatever it was. And then Disney realized they had a problem because they had about 80% plus of the ownership of this resort that didn't take them up on that offer. And how do you extend the deed of a resort when only a certain percentage of the resort has actually extended? So that then ensued a combination of quit claim deeds and other affidavits that had to be signed and threats that Derek had to make to people to sign those. In order to try to get most people that didn't buy it to say that they knew specifically they had to vacate that place in 2042. Derek, did I get any of that wrong?
I'm having like PTSD now, just trying to remember what it was like back in 2008. So yeah, Paul's exactly right. Disney came up with the idea and said, hey, you know what we're going to do? OQS expires in 2042. So let's offer folks the chance to extend 15 more years, so their deed goes until 2057. And what we're going to do, we're going to give it to you for a deal. So I think the first out of the box offer was, I believe it was like $10 a point, right? So you had members say they had 200 points. Seems like a no-brainer, right? You're like, hey, for $2,000, you can extend your membership 15 extra years. But the problem was, vacation guides and everybody had to get a hold of all the thousands and thousands and thousands of members to reach out to them to say, would you like to do this? And like Paul said, I wonder if there's ever been anything official on how many people did it, but it definitely was not the response that they had hoped for. Because a lot of folks, and they would tell me even over the phone, because we would have literally phone nights where all the guides were asked to stay over, and we would just go through, entire lists of calling all these members, did you want to do it? And a lot of folks were like, literally had the answer, and I don't blame them. They're like, this was in 2008, keep in mind. So they're like, hey, so in 2042, do you want to give us $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 now for something that's going to kick in 2042? So a lot of folks were like, no, I mean, I'm good. I've got how many more years left of this? So that's where the majority of folks just said no. But then like Paul said, then it became an issue of like, okay, so all the folks that said no, you can't just say no. You got to sign this, quit claim deed back that we're going to take it back from you in 2042, because we've got some folks over here that took it all the way till 2057. So it was a hot mess. And so that's where I think that, experiment stopped. And that's why people ask, hey, are they ever going to do something like that again for like the Boardwalk or Beach Club? And I'm like, no way. They're just going to let this stuff settle. let it come to the finish line, however it's going to come, because it just did not work out. Because again, I wouldn't want to do it. Like, I would not want to give $3,000, $4,000 now, but where I still had 30 more years left. Like, no, I'm not paying that.
But Derek, let's say in 2035, they made that offer for the 2042 people. You don't think they would have had a lot more people take it?
Oh, 100%, Panda.
And you don't think they'll revisit it in the future?
I don't know
about that.
Well, and before we get into theories and speculations, let me just add this to the conversation. I was at the Boardwalk Condo Association meeting in December. This question was asked as to whether or not there was a consideration for an extension to Boardwalk. The leadership of DVC shut that conversation down so fast that and most of them, a lot of the senior leadership, they've been there probably, back when Derek was there. They've lived through the old Key West debacle. I can tell you for a fact that at least a lot of the people there that are in senior leadership also have that PTSD related to what happened to Old Key West. And the answer is no. The answer is no to that question right now. Now, Jeff, I will let us go kind of around the room and give some speculation, because I've had some speculation and thought as to what they might do for many years. But Jeff, I'll let you lead the discussion here.
Well, and to that point, I myself personally asked that question in my old Key West meeting. I brought it up to the fact that they've kind of backed themselves into a corner here. And just like Paul said, they did shut it down. And I can't remember her name. Is Yvonne?
Yvonne
Yes.
Chang.
Yeah. She very specifically said there are no plans to revisit that. But my point to them was, and I think they heard it, and I think it's something that they've thought about. But for example, and I don't know how many people are in this boat, but I admittedly own a lot of old Key West contracts, or I did until recently. I actually looked at them one day, and one of my 2042s and one of my 2057s were in the same building. You look at the legal description on your deeds in your purchase contracts, same building, two different expiration dates. Now, mind you, it's like a tile. It's like a 1-inch tile that you own, or the doorknob, or whatever that you want to present that out as. But I don't know how legally they're going to be able to do anything with that property until 2057. I think they've backed themselves into this corner because there's probably a lot of those buildings that are hybrid like that. Some expire this day, some expire that day. They do buy Old Key West back pretty frequently on right of first refusal. I personally, speculation, I don't know how they're going to get out of it. Or they're just going to be paying their own dues themselves after 2042 to 2057 on those contracts that have expired. But the maintenance is still going to be there. Not everybody will have expired. It's going to be a weird situation. So that's my personal feeling. I think the other three that we haven't talked about, Boulder Ridge, Beach Club, Boardwalk, first of all, their point charts have no business being as low as they are. Other properties that are adjacent, Epcot adjacent to Magic Kingdom, those are easy flips. Polish paint, call it something different, easy peasy. But I think Old Key West is going to be the exception. I don't know how they're going to get out of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The point charts is where I come back to, especially when you look at Boardwalk and Beach Club. Like they are, I feel like when you compare them to Grand Floridian, Polynesian, which I get, like those are like the crown jewel resorts, but those are walking distance or monorail distance to Magic Kingdom. You got walking Skyliner boat to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. I think that they regret how low the point charts are at Boardwalk and Beach Club, and that is going to be one of the first things they want to change.
And Amy, that's such a perfect point. Just when you both said that, is just because that goes to the value of Disney Vacation Club. And I say that because people again ask all the time, like, why am I going to join the club? Because they're going to jack up the points and blah blah blah. It's going to be more points later on. I go, listen, the points are what they are. Those charts. Do you not think that if Disney could in some way, shape, or form change those Beach Club and Boardwalk point charts, they 100% would, but they can't. They legally can't. So that is the value of buying Disney Vacation Club, is those point charts are basically they're sealed up, so that it goes to the value. But now you see, they're like, okay, well, we're going to build one now. they ain't making that same mistake. They kind of kept doing it with Old Key West was insanely low. And they're like, wait a second, maybe we should make the next one a little bit more. And now, and so forth and so forth. So yeah.
And it's worth noting, this is a one-time problem that Disney Vacation Club have backed themselves into. Because if you, I'll put this up on the screen again. If you look at all of the other resorts, all of the other expiration dates are staggered. So what they learned very quickly is that they needed to make these, 50-year contracts based off of the year that the property was built. And so those numbers just extend outwards, just like Cabins at Fort Wilderness has a 2075. That's a 50-year contract essentially from the first year that it'll be a fully converted resort. And those decisions, were methodical because they don't want to get themselves into this situation again. Because this is where, for me, my theory with what they're going to do comes into play, is because I don't see how they function with so many resorts going offline. If we just specifically look at Walt Disney World, you've got Beach Club, you've got Boulder Ridge, you've got Boardwalk, and then you have the old. I will remove Old Key West because they have their own problem that they're going to have to deal with over there.
It's like half of Key West.
But it'll Old Key West will have its own problem that they'll significantly have to deal with. But just looking at, unless they make sure that they sell out of Aulani and all their other points before 2042 so that they can then offer 3 resorts at once, because they're doing that now. Let's be honest, they're offering at least 3 different properties at Walt Disney World now, so it's not unheard of that they could potentially try to sell all 3 properties at once. But it would take some time. And also, you would imagine that they would have to take these resorts offline for maybe a year to 2 years to fully refurbish them. I mean, we know the refurbishments that like Boardwalk just got, but if you look behind, the walls in Boardwalk, there's a lot of stuff that they need to do. So, are they going to demo portions of these resorts? Are they going to add a tower in the middle of, Beach Club that extends the number of rooms that they're able to sell there? All of these things are potential things that they can do in 2042 to then flip and resell. For those reasons, I wonder if, and Panda, I will pose this to you because you kind of asked this question earlier. If you were offered, let's say that you own a 2042 contract, 5 years or so before that contract expires, what if I offer you a 15-year extension that takes it out to 2057? But it's kind of a flex membership. Almost say the Palmetto Trust, for example. It's a trust membership in which your points are now able to be used at 3 or 4 different properties: Beach Club, Boardwalk, Boulder Ridge. Perhaps if they don't sell them off, these other 2042 properties, Hilton Head at Vero Beach, based off of a certain parameter and timeline of knowing that this resort is going offline at this period of time, this resort is going offline at this period of time. So they're solving 2 problems at once. Essentially what they're doing is they're allowing themselves more time to maybe take 1 resort offline at a time. And they know that only a certain percentage of owners are actually going to buy into this 15-year extension. But they're allowing themselves the ability to take 1 resort offline, flip it, resell it, move to the next, flip it, resell it. And then once that 15-year period is done, then they have 4 beautiful new Disney Vacation Club resorts that they've either resold or flipped. And that's when your contract, or kind of your extension contract, expires. I think it solves for multiple problems. It's just whether people would kind of buy into that concept of, I'm almost buying a 15-year extension for multiple properties.
I'll do it.
I would be a no.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah, if it doesn't function the way I'm used to all these years of DVC, no, it sounds too loosey-goosey and too strange to change it up on me like that. Yeah, I would have to really do a deep dive. But I just wanted to say, back to what you were saying about how Disney leadership right now doesn't care because many of them won't be there in 15 years or whenever this happens. I think the same thing in 10 years from now when they revisit this. I think the whole PTSD that you guys feel from it will be long gone, and extensions may be offered again because the leadership's going to change 3 times by then. God only knows what could happen.
Yeah, that's the same thing we see in the parks too. With the expansions. It's gone are the days of let's announce something, because now we're in the days of, well, we're thinking about this. What do you guys think about that? If you like it enough, maybe we'll do it. So I think we'll see feelers. I think we'll see surveys, all of that kind of stuff as we get closer to that.
Yeah, and another thing to just piggyback onto that too. I don't know. I think that those ones that are adjacent to Disney World are still going to get flipped right at 2042. A couple years ago, I maybe wouldn't have gone so hard with that, but they clearly have no problem selling multiple resorts at the same time. And again, I go back to, they're selling Old Key West for 165 or 170 a point. New resorts are going for 235 now. Like, they're going to want to make money, and they're going to want to make money fast. And so I don't see an extension being in the cards. Maybe again, like I said, Old Key West, but those other three, like Boulder Ridge is such an easy Copper Creek 2.0 that I just don't see the necessity for them to extend that contract.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, they also don't have problems right now selling a resort that's 10 years old as a brand new property again. That's what they're doing with the Polynesian. I mean, there's 11 less years on that contract. And it's still selling
as a
new property,
right? As a new price.
And if you're buying into the brand new Island Tower today, it's not 50 years from today. That is still a 2066 contract for the Polynesian. The same thing that they just proved with Grand Floridian. Grand Floridian 2064 contract. So we had Grand Floridian 2064. Then 2 years later, the Polynesian added one. So 2068, that's Copper Creek. Be interesting to see if we see, do they flip more of Wilderness Lodge and add it to Copper Creek? Or what they do.
Boulder Ridge to Copper Creek. And
yeah, kind of what do they do over there? Because I think that they've found a golden opportunity with kind of adding to these resorts and offering kind of that 40-year contract purchase option. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But I know we've kind of derailed in this show, talked a lot about 2042, because that is kind of the expiration date that if you are looking at Disney Vacation Club, you do need to pay the most attention to, because it is the one that's coming up the quickest. But I kind of end things by saying the same thing that I said in our first Back to Basics show, where we discussed Disney Vacation Club, where if this is a serious consideration for you, or if you do know what you're doing in 2042 or beyond, then, talk to a Disney Vacation Club sales guide, whether direct or resale, and engage them in those conversations. Express maybe concerns that you have about a specific resort and its expiration date and how maybe that affects you or your family. Derek, I don't know if you have numbers on this, but average Disney Vacation Club owner probably never sees the entire life of a contract, do they?
No, I mean, honestly, it's pretty rare. So when we see people that are looking to sell their old Key West, and you look at their contract number and it's like, 1003, you're like, holy cow, when did you buy this? And they're like, oh, like 1991 or 1992. It's pretty rare. I think the average lifespan of a membership is somewhere around, and Paul, you might know too, I think it's somewhere around like 7 to 10 years or somewhere in that mix, where families will all the time sit and say, so I don't care. I want the one with the longest deed because I'm never going to sell. And I know when you buy this, you think I'm never going to sell it. But we sold over 4,500 contracts last year. Not every one of those 4,500 contracts, when they first bought it, said, I can't wait to sell this in 2024. Nobody said that. But you know what? Life happens. So life gets in the way. For the most part, when people sell, they're happy. They're like, God, you know what? We've used this. We've loved this. We tell the new owners, I hope they love it as much as I do. It's so cute when they do that, because it's like buying a house. They're like, oh my God, our kids grew up with this membership. Other people might sell because, in the case of divorce or maybe a job loss or for whatever reason. But I mean, thank God that there's an out for these people, to be able to sell it and recoup, your funds. Because I'm in agreement with just about everything I think everybody said. I don't think there's going to be any extensions. No way. They ain't going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. They're not going to do quick claim deeds and buybacks. And do you want it? Do you not want it? If you don't want it, you got to do this. They ain't got time for that. So they're going to, I think Vero and Hilton Head, I think will be gone. So I think they will literally take that land and put up whatever it is. They can sell it to whoever it is. It's incredibly valuable property on both fronts. I think those are gone. And I think just like Jeff said, and you guys kind of talked on too, I think they're just going to take the beach club and boardwalk. Hey, you know what? We're going to, demolish this half of the resort. We're going to build new ones, sell it as a brand new membership. However, that's going to work because that location can't be beat. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I tell people every day, if you're buying a 2042, plan on it ending. Don't buy it in hopes that Disney's going to do something. Don't buy it in hope that there's going to be a super cheap extension down the road, blah, blah, blah. Buy it, plan it, ending in 2042.
We really want to hear your comments on 2042 resorts, because I think this is going to be more and more of a conversation over the next 15 years or so. And hopefully we're here kind of enjoying this journey with you. And in 7 to 10 years, we haven't sold all of our Disney Vacation Club points. But I think it's going to be a topic that comes up in conversation more and more, and one that we focus on more. But let us know in the comments below, like, what are you thinking about a 2042 resort? If you own one right now, has this been a conversation that you've had? Or is it kind of like, you know what? Yeah, these resorts expire, but I'm probably never going to own it to term anyhow. So it's not something that you've overly been concerned about with your purchase. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the DVC Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next Monday.